Okay, so today we are going to study about synapse. What is the meaning of synapse? Synapse means it is the junction between two neurons in which the impulse are transmitted in the form of chemicals called neurotransmitters. Okay, so whenever there is any stimulus, it is detected by the receptor, then the receptor will send impulse to the sensory neuron, and the sensory neuron will send impulse to the relay neuron, and then the relay neuron will send impulse to the motor neuron, and then the motor neuron will carry impulse to the effector. So between the sensory and relay neuron, when the impulse is transmitted, then it is transmitted across synapse. And similarly, between the relay and motor neuron, when the impulse is transmitted, then it is transmitted across synapse. It is just a junction between two neurons. This junction is called what? Synapse. This is sensory neuron. This is sensory neuron. How we are going to identify that it is sensory neuron? That its cell body is not located at the terminal end. Then this is relay neuron. Why it is relay neuron? Because its axon is very short. Then this is motor neuron because its axon is very long. Okay? The sensory will always make synapse with the relay neuron, and relay will always make synapse with the motor neuron. So what happened in actually in synapse, how the signals are transmitted from one neuron to another neuron across synapse. Okay. So in the presynaptic neuron, that is if it is sensory neuron, then the postsynaptic neuron will be relay neuron, and if the presynaptic neuron is relay neuron, then the postsynaptic neuron will be motor neuron. Okay, so in the presynaptic neuron you will always see the vesicles. These are the vesicles, and the vesicles containing what? Vesicles containing neurotransmitters. These are the vesicles, and these vesicles, they are containing what? Neurotransmitters. Neurotransmitters क्या होते हैं? These are the chemicals. ठीक है? So these vesicles are present containing neurotransmitter. They are present in the presynaptic neuron, whereas postsynaptic neuron will contain the receptor, and these receptor are complementary to the shape of the neurotransmitter. Okay, now we should begin now. So as soon as the impulse it reached the presynaptic neuron, then what happen? It get depolarized. अच्छा, अगर आपने depolarized लिखना है तो लिखो, नहीं लिखना तो ना लिखो. Once ये mark scheme में आया है, नहीं लिखना तो ना लिखो. It is all okay. ठीक है? तो once the impulse reached the presynaptic neuron, then what happened? Voltage gated calcium channels will open, due to which what happened, and this again it comes once in the mark scheme. Let's suppose अगर ये ज़्यादा marks का आ जाता है, then you should mention it. You should mention depolarize, and you should mention voltage gated calcium channel too. Okay, now this voltage gated calcium channel will open, and calcium will move from higher concentration to lower concentration in the presynaptic neuron. Now what is the role of this calcium ion? The calcium ion will stimulate the vesicle to fuse with the cell membrane, with the membrane of the presynaptic neuron, and release neurotransmitter in the synaptic cleft. इस gap के अंदर वो release कर देगा. It will release the neurotransmitters in the synaptic gap. These neurotransmitters are complementary to the shape of the receptor. Now this is important. Vesicles containing neurotransmitter is important. This vesicle will fuse with the neurotransmitter and release in the synaptic cleft. This is important. And then the neurotransmitter is complementary to the shape of receptor, which is located on the postsynaptic neuron. This is important. This you should write it down. Okay? Now, as soon as it binds to the receptor, then the impulse will be transmitted to the postsynaptic neuron. Now then what happened to the neurotransmitter? The neurotransmitter will get destroyed by the enzyme which are present in this synaptic cleft, and destroyed, or they will be broken down. These neurotransmitter will be broken down by the enzymes, and then they will reabsorbed by the presynaptic neuron. The enzyme which are present in the synapse, they break down the neurotransmitter, because eventually the neurotransmitter, after transmitting the impulse, they get detached from the receptor. So what happened to the neurotransmitter? The enzyme will break down, and they get reabsorbed in the presynaptic neuron and regenerated. Clear?